Imagine a painting worth tens of millions of dollars that never needs to cross a border, never appears on a customs manifest, and whose true owner could be a company you've never heard of or a sanctioned official you can't touch. Sounds like fiction? It's how the ultra-rich and the extremely well-connected have been treating art, not just as beauty or investment, but as a private ATM. Stick with me. I'm going to show you step by step how high-value art moves like secret money around the world and why a new US bill could change everything. Hey, welcome back to Wealth Forensics. Today we're peeling back the velvet curtain on the global art market to explain how private sales, Freeports, shell companies, and sketchy provenance make art an ideal vehicle for hiding or moving massive wealth. By the end of this piece, you'll understand the mechanics, see real cases from 1MDB to Freeport seizures, and learn what the Art Market Integrity Act, S 2400, would actually do if it becomes law. Quick disclaimer, this is educational content only. I'm explaining public reports and laws, not giving legal advice. If you need legal or compliance help, consult an attorney or qualified professional. Let's break this down into 5 main parts: private sales, Freeports, shell companies and nominees, provenance gaps and laundering, and finally the Art Market Integrity Act and what it means for collectors and investigators. Every 30 to 40 seconds, I'll drop a detail that changes the picture, so keep listening. Private sales have exploded at the high end of the market. Auction houses like Sotheby's and Christie's now run large private channels. In recent market summaries, private sales were growing. Sotheby's private sales were reported up roughly 17% to about $1.4 billion in a reference 12-month comparison, and Christie's private sales were up around 41% to roughly $1.5 billion. Why? Sellers want discretion and buyers want privacy. When a painting sells in a public auction, we get price discovery, the hammer price, buyer, seller sometimes, and a public record. In private sales, all that disappears. Parties can agree on a price off the books, use intermediaries or dealers to mask who's buying, and route payments through intricate banking and corporate channels. That matters for 2 reasons. First, without public prices, it's easy to overpay or underpay in ways that move value around, like routing $50 million from one company to another in exchange for art that never needs to be inspected by independent experts. Second, because private deals often use intermediaries, the ultimate beneficial owner, the person who really controls the money, can be obscured in the chain. Private sales are the foundation of the hidden ATM model. High ticket, confidential, and easily routed through non-transparent structures. But private sales alone aren't enough. You also need a place to store and move the object without triggering customs or tax events. That's where Freeports come in. Freeports are storage facilities located in duty-free zones where goods can be kept in a legal state of in transit indefinitely. Think Geneva, Luxembourg, Singapore, Monaco. These hubs have specialized art Freeports where works can be stored, shown to potential buyers, restored, and even traded without those normal import and export declarations and tax triggers. Some reporting has cited figures like tens of billions, even popular estimates of $100 billion for assets in places like Geneva Freeport. That 100 billion number is an estimate widely cited in reporting, but it's not an audited total. The key point is the relative scale and opacity. Freeports create a practical and legal environment that hides visibility and delays tax or customs reporting, perfect for someone who wants to keep art off the public radar. Because works can remain in transit, enforcement authorities often can't easily treat them as local assets. If a sanctioned individual buys a painting and stores it in a Freeport in Geneva, it may not appear on any national registry and customs authorities may have no record. That makes seizure or tracing far more complicated. Remember, a work in a Freeport can change legal ownership through a share transfer in a shell company without the physical object ever moving. You might be picturing a painting sitting under a tarp. But sometimes the art that moves millions is just a name on a corporate registry, a bill of sale, and a photo. The physical object never needs to leave the storage facility for ownership and value to shift. If private sales are confidential and Freeports hide the physical trail, shell companies and nominee arrangements sever the legal link to the real owner. Offshore jurisdictions provide ready-made corporate vehicles that can register title to artworks. Trusts, nominee directors, and other fiduciary structures create layers between the artwork and the ultimate beneficial owner. Most enforcement mechanisms, whether civil suits, sanctions, or tax collection, rely on being able to tie an asset to a person. If ownership is held by a British Virgin Islands Incorporated company that is itself owned by another company in Panama, which is administered by a trust in Liechtenstein, authorities have to unravel a thicket of documents and jurisdictions. We saw this play out in the Panama Papers revelations and reporting since 2016, where secretive vehicles hid ownership and art showed up repeatedly in those leaks. Consider the 1MDB-related seizures. Artworks linked to money siphoned from Malaysia's 1MDB fund were found in multiple storage locations and tied to corporate entities. Those cases show the combination. Ill-gotten funds were laundered through art purchases, stored in controlled environments, and registered to corporate vehicles that mask the people behind them. If the company on the title is dissolved or the registries are opaque, how do you prove a work belongs to someone you're trying to sanction or sue? That's the core challenge investigators face, and it leads straight into provenance, which can either expose or clean the trail. Provenance, the documentation of an artwork's ownership history, is the market's memory. But when provenance is incomplete, forged, or intentionally falsified, it becomes a tool for laundering. Dealers and intermediaries sometimes accept thin or questionable provenance in private sales. That creates the possibility of cleansing works. A formerly looted or stolen item can be dressed up with new paperwork and resold as legitimate. There are documented cases where provenance gaps allowed looted objects or disputed works to be circulated. The European Parliament and NGOs flagged Freeports and opaque ownership chains as risks in the 2018-2019 period. In practice, if a high-value object arrives in a Freeport with minimal documentation and is then sold privately through a dealer who provides a new chain of paperwork, that creates plausible deniability for subsequent buyers and hides problems from investigators. Who vets the vetters? Historically, the art market prized confidentiality and trust among practitioners, but that culture can shield wrongdoing. Investigators and regulators see provenance gaps as a multiplier for abuse. And because high-value works are rare, a single lot can be worth tens of millions. The incentive to manipulate provenance is enormous. If private sales, Freeports, and shells can conceal ownership and taint provenance can hide theft or sanctions links, what can regulators actually do? Enter the Art Market Integrity Act. On the 23rd of July, 2025, S. 2400. The Art Market Integrity Act was introduced in the U.S. Senate. The bill proposes to bring many art intermediaries into the Bank Secrecy Act fold. In plain language, dealers, galleries, auction houses, and other intermediaries could be required to do know your customer or customer due diligence on buyers and sellers, keep records, and file suspicious activity reports in transactions that meet statutory thresholds or annual activity tests. The bill's stated goal is to reduce money laundering and make it harder to use art to hide assets or evade sanctions. If implemented, investigators, FinCEN, OFAC, federal prosecutors, customs, and tax authorities would have clearer legal grounds to ask for records and trace money flows. That means more paper trails, more mandatory customer identification, and more reporting of suspicious deals. For investigators, it strengthens the legal toolkit.